Okay, welcome. My name is David Pinto. I'm going to split this up into three sections. A more formal section, which is more academic treatment of ABC. State, which is an intervention that one conducts in schools as teachers in order to improve the self-organisation and self-discipline of students, to create environments that are more conducive for learning. For cooperation, collaborative learning, social learning, metacognition, and so on and so forth. ABC state hopefully can facilitate that. I'm going to go into detail to what the problem is academically in the second one, maybe tie it all up in the end with the third one. But with this first one, what I'd like to do is tell you about my experience and what roughly I thought ABC was before I started doing a PhD in this. So, I'm going to start with what ABC is and maybe give you a bit of background on what it is. As a PGCE student, that's postgraduate certificate of education teacher, that takes a year in the UK. I went into three schools to practice. So we did a lot of activities in school, in university, which were great fun, by the way, run by Brian Humble, and it was fantastic. And it was just lots of experiences and fun stuff, very different from the way I learned at school, which was basically chalk and talk. I was a really good student. Listen, do, did, qualification, great, easy. But I found that a lot of other kids of my peers didn't work like that. And when I did the PGC, it was all experiential. So you went in and you sat in groups. That was strange. And then there were activities and puzzles all the time. That's all the teacher training was. Lots of puzzles and lots of games and activities. It was great. But then when I went to school and introduced them into a few classes, I got a reasonable amount of success. It was good. But there were a couple of classes, like for example, year 7s, that's 11, 12-year-olds, that didn't quite get as much out of the experience. And it was a little bit of a labour, to be honest, a little bit of a labour to put all this effort in, to come up with these activities, and chop up pieces of paper and everything else, blah, 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 have them all distribute and blah, 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 and organising the kids to do it was a bit of a labour, And at the end of it, tidying it up, that was all exhausting. And even the experience wasn't that enjoyable. It wasn't as enjoyable as when I did it, And so I'd ask the students, why is that? Why is it, I give you activities, why is it you don't behave as much as, other classes? And they go, they're quite honest, we're not afraid of you. We're not afraid of you. And so I did the shadowing of this class into other classes, and it's true. There were some classes, they were just like flat as pancakes. And I was like, why is that? And some of them was like the deputy head, and I followed the deputy head once, and that was kind of interesting. And basically, there is fear. And I remember, deputy had a great relationship with the students. It was really quite fun, and he was a funny guy. He was a funny older guy, and in his classes, he did have a bit of humour going on. It was quite gentle. He was gentle with the kids, all right. But if they stepped out of line, he turned into the greatest beast the world's ever seen. I mean, really, it was like a bear. It was like, and I was like, ooh, I hadn't seen that. And then, kids were like, ooh, what was that? And they'd all be kind of quiet. And then the guy would get back to his avuncular or maybe grandfatherly kind of like behaviour with the students. And it worked, So it was only minimal. And that's what I found. I found that in classes where things were going well, you never saw the problem. It was prevented. Most of it was because based on fear, personal fear of this kind of person, and the behaviour of this person. Or it was institutional control. It was completely unemotional, flat, just this is how it works, and it grinds you down. You cannot escape. You just cannot escape, because as soon as you're into the bad books and it's marked, it's going to be tabulated, and and there's a whole series of events, and this teacher will follow it through, and everybody knows it. So you have kind of personal, and then you have this institutional. It isn't fear, but it's like, good grief. Those are the two main ones. And I worked out, I was like, oh, okay, which one do I want to do? I don't really like the institutional forms of control because it involves a lot of tabulations. And the fear thing I learned to do, I did a bit of like barking. I call it barking. Didn't have much of a bite, but I definitely could bark. And that was kind of okay. However, I wasn't happy with the whole situation. And it didn't really, it did help, all right? But what I worked out was that most classes of schools are running what I called C classes, okay? What I eventually called C classes. And that meant that I had to, if I was going to be in a class with a C class, it means that I had to monitor the behavior of the students. And I have to nag them. And if they step out of line, I have to do something, okay? And usually it's quite a high level standard expectation. So you've got expectations, and if people step over those expectations, you step in and then you impose order, okay? And there's a discipline policy, which is supported by government, to enforce that. And I worked out a different way of doing it. And I gave people, students, a system. And I developed this over the years. So when I encountered a class, a little bit further in, right? When I encountered a class, I would say, right, and I got them engaged, somehow or other got their attention, somehow or other was, I'd either done it through quite a bark, okay, quite professional, quite like, here I am, all right, pay attention. Or it was more like, oh, I'm listening to you, I'm listening to you. Are they listening to you? Oh, you're listening. Oh, you're listening. Great. Or it was like some kind of interesting puzzle game thing that I just kind of started with, and they were paying attention. Okay, at some point, rather than paying attention, we've done something that was pretty good, it was quite enjoyable, and then I say, and then it starts going off. And if it starts going off, I might do this. And so there'll be different ways with different classes. It might be the very first lesson, it might be several lessons in, that I explain, this is how I run classes, ABC state. I call it ABC state now, okay, it used to be called ABC classes. And I would say, right, this is how I run my classes, and I'll explain it to you now, right? This is you tell this to the kids, from 11 upwards, up to 16, 18. I think it fits for all kinds of behavior, whether in classrooms, any adult, any organization. Right, when I come into a class, I'm going to treat you like a B class. Okay, a B class, and you think, well, what's an A, B, or a C class? But it might descend to a C, because I think most classes are C, but it could go up to an A. This all depends on you guys, okay, not me. And this determines how I interact with you. But when I start, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'll put it right in the middle as a B class. Now, what is A, B, and C class? Right. An A class is where everybody has their self-discipline. Okay? It means that the classes are running really smoothly, people are paying attention when they're meant to be, working when they're meant to be, come up with creative things when they're meant to be, socially doing stuff when they're meant to be, and so on and so forth. It's great. And it means that a teacher can give lots of different activities, like in maths, I can do like 4 or 5 or 6 different activities, because the transitions are really fast. Okay, it means that we can do a puzzle, and then bang, we can snap into another thing. Group work, right, can we get into group tables? And it takes a minute, all right, for people to get the tables all sorted, sitting down in groups, and we're ready to go again. Okay, so it's very, very elegant, very fast, enjoyable activities, and you can get project learning. There's lots of activities that can occur from an A state class. A B state class is where everybody's got their self-discipline, except somebody sometimes loses their self-discipline. However, in a B class, somebody else points it out. Now, it could be the teacher, and it could be a friend, another student, that just points out to this person, well, you've dropped this stuff on the floor. Oh, we're meant to be paying attention. Oh, look, we're meant to all be working now. And we're just kind of like passing this on to each other. It's kind of a bit like herding kind of like thing. And so if somebody loses their self-discipline, but somebody else points it out, they correct it. That's a B class. And that's kind of reasonable because, we're all learning here. We make mistakes. It's okay, as long as, people are looking out for us. Great. C, a C state is where somebody loses their self-discipline and somebody else helps them, points it out, tries to correct it, or they don't correct it, they just try to point it out, and they continue. That's it. Okay, that's a C state. They intentionally continue, even when somebody else points it out. Now, because of that, that could be disruptive. That could lead to be something which is disruptive. in which case the teacher is empowered by government to impose sections of control on pupils' behavior. Okay? By government. This is a legal thing. Okay? So you can impose, you're going to leave the class. You're going to spend time in detention after school. We're going to bite into your own time. Okay? And these are legal empowerments. Okay? For a C state class. Now, this ABC is the state of the class. It's not an individual. Okay? It's the state of a class. And it doesn't mean that once a class has got the state, that's it. It's like a qualification. No. It is the state of the class. So, if there's a class right now and they're all paying attention, right? This is like currently, it's kind of like an A state, all right? If somebody was like not paying attention, it'd be like, oh, you're right. And they do, that would be a B state. And if I was, I've told you like 3 times, you're still not paying attention. What's under that table? What is it? Is it bubble gum? What is it? Your foot. You've never seen your foot before. Whatever. C state, I might have to warn them, right? Bang. Okay. And if I'm doing that, it means that when I'm talking, even when I'm talking to a bunch of people, if I'm in a C state, I'm kind of making sure that they're paying attention. I'm not really focusing on the thing I want to be focusing on. A bit of maths, or in this case, talking about ABC states, or a bit of geography, or maybe some kind of philosophical point regarding some literature somewhere, and you go, wow, we're off into the space. And if it's an A class, it means you can go off on that, and then you turn around and everybody's with you. Okay? Or if somebody's talking, all right, for the class, blah, 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 and then you're really paying attention, right? You're about to answer, and then you look up and everybody else is paying attention. That's an A state. They're paying attention to a member of their own class. However, if they're not, all right, you kind of look up and say, did you hear? Oh, okay, right. Blah, 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 blah. That's a B state. If you kind of look up and there are people like having a chat, doing other things, not paying attention, boom, okay? Well, actually, I made the mistake. I cannot let myself follow a student. If this is a C class, I can't really pay attention, follow that student, because I've got to make sure, while I'm paying attention, okay, it's John, pay attention, Tom, blah, blah. I have to monitor. Even when I'm talking, or listening, or doing anything, I have to monitor the students. This is a default status to A state classes on the adult. Behavior of the adult. I don't talk about all of this, all right, to the students. Okay, all I do is I say ABC, self-discipline, everyone's got it. B, somebody loses it, somebody else helps them, and they correct it. C, somebody loses their self-discipline, somebody helps them, and they continue. That's it. Do you get it? Right, good. And then you just start doing activities, you start doing puzzles, you start doing stuff. And at the end of the class, you say, right, was this an A, B, or C? What do you think? I think it's, and I give them my guess. They come up with some guesses. There are different ways of evaluating it. So, at some point during the lesson, I might be sitting at my table doing something. Kid comes out, sharpens a pencil, and I say, what kind of class do you think this is? And the kid's like, looks around. I think it's a B class. Really? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. Right, thanks. And so you're trying to get an evaluation of it. Now, the evaluation, it gets a little bit tricky. We'll talk about that a bit. Right, the evaluation of the state. That is part of the ABC state activity, the intervention. It's the evaluation because there were multiple perceptions of everybody involved. However, that's it. Now, and if at the end of the class I say, look, I have to say, and it's kind of personal because it determines my behaviour as a teacher. Personal and institutionally important. I actually thought it was a C class because, I told somebody to do something and they just kept on going and I had to. We're in a B state, so I couldn't just impose order. I'm not allowed to because everybody's got their self-discipline. All we're allowed to really do is just point things out. And if they continue, it's like, well, that's the way it goes. Now, it's only obviously if it's really disruptive, then obviously I impose order. I'm a teacher after all. I'm accountable for everything. Okay, that's fine. But in a normal class, if it's a B state class, the idea is I am not doing this. That's why it's a B state class. And so if I say, look, it's not going as well as it could be, I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the class because I saw things that shouldn't be happening really, okay? And I kind of pointed out a few of them and they continued, okay? And if we let that happen, it's just not unpleasant. It's just unpleasant. Or for example, you know, when we're all meant to be doing solid work, you know, 20-minute solid work, some people weren't. Okay, and they know who they are. You don't have to point out who they are. You can just say some people weren't doing very well, and so I think this is a C class. Okay, so next lesson, when I see you, it's going to be, I'm going to treat you like a C class. Mm-hmm. So that means that I'm, you know, people line up when they come in, blah, 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 less personal, and I'm kind of monitoring at all times, making sure. So a percentage, quite a reasonable amount of my percentage, I don't know, at least 30% of my time is involved at any moment almost, is like monitoring. Okay, I might have to spend an additional 20% on actual disciplining. Actually, no, maybe not 10%, 10 to 20% on actually, you know, putting a mark on somebody, And a lot of time starts getting absorbed in just making sure that the class is going well, and it's taking up most of my discipline, that kind of aspect of my role. Whereas with the B state, it's only 10%, I would say, well, monitoring, let's say. Okay, you're not really monitoring, you're kind of monitoring, you're aware of what's going on. It's more like awareness, but you're not kind of checking like this. Okay, I state 1%. Okay, because basically you're into this relationship of everything's going to be fine, let's go. Okay, and it's just a lot more fun, enjoyable, the activities, everything runs smoother. People volunteer to do things, to help out, and so on and so forth. You know, the people with social intelligence are correctly ascertained, described, are active in the class. People with intra-personal, which is the hardest. That's what A state's for, is to find out amongst the class, amongst the peers themselves, who amongst them have intra-intelligence capacities and skills, i.e. they're usually quite quiet, they're observant, they are still, they've got a reasonable amount of love, kind of for people. They're calmer people and quieter people. And the only way you can find that out is if you're actually in a good, well-run class. Not well-run in this way, but everybody's just a little bit more human, okay, and it's distributed. I mean, I'll describe this later, but it's a thing called dissipated control, or authentic, what was the second word? Authentic, no, it wasn't authority, it wasn't, maybe it was, authentic authority. And it's to do with the fact that we're real, okay, and there's only certain ways that a bunch of people in a room can organize ourselves to do anything collectively, and to have enough flexibility and receptiveness within the class to deal with when people don't want to do certain things, and they might not like doing some things, but doing it in a constructive way so that we still get to do things, or we change how we go, okay? And that's a form of negotiation. But not negotiation in the way that negotiation occurs in C classes, which is usually quite formal and adult-based and oppositional, and then compromise and so on. We're kind of looking for like ideal situations and solutions for everybody. And that's only going to come out of an A state class. Right, so that's basically it. I've described it 20 minutes in. An A class, B class, and a C class, and this determines the behavior of the teacher. This is fundamental, and it's not based on the individual, okay, so it's a bunch of okay, so it's a bunch of individuals, and the way to represent it is if the teacher, C class, is the teacher is in control. Okay, that's a bit like a hierarchy. So it's a bit like teacher there, all the kids there, okay, and it's control. Okay, and the teacher might have, you know, favorites. I know they're not meant to, but they kind of do. Okay, they can trust certain people to, like, you know, make sure that they run the class. The B state is more like the teacher is definitely not part of the class. Okay, but they're kind of a bit on the outskirts or something. And this class is starting to form some kind of boundary. That's kind of A or B. And maybe with an A class, the teacher's kind of part of that, and the students are aware that they're part of it. Okay. And so the center of control, there's a thing called locus of control in psychology, and it's to do with internal locus of control and external locus of control. I can't remember where it's from, hunt it out. And the internal locus of control is basically, I am the determiner of things that happen in my reality. I have the resources, I have the resilience, I have the ideas, I have the creativity, I. The external form of control is, locus of control is somebody else is in charge. The resources are external to me, the control is outside of me, I can't do these things because, and there are conditional factors external to me. It's called the external locus of control. Now that has been updated in psychology to become a little bit more sensitive, rather than this I am in control, oh I'm not in control, that kind of internal, external, to actually admitting that there is actually some kind of relationship between the internal and the external and interdependence. And so what I'm suggesting for this is locus of control is most definitely around the teacher, and everybody knows it. Okay, everybody in a C class knows that's the person in control. Whereas this one, everybody knows, A and B, that the teacher is accountable. There's a difference. It's not responsible, but accountable. Oh, hey, accountable. The teacher is definitely accountable, of course, if anything is to go wrong, or to make sure that things don't get out of hand. However, the locus of control is much more. Is kind of like, it's in the center. Dissipated control. That's what Dahl came up with, and he was studying mathematics and how maths was being learnt, and he saw one or two teachers that exhibited a kind of self-organizing system. And that's what ABC is, a formal version of what Dahl talked about, is dissipative control, where everybody's in charge of themselves, as it were, and the whole collective success of the class is necessarily dependent on the participation of all the students. This one, B state, is because we're helping each other. Okay, so there's like relationships of help. Okay, maybe I should have done that. Green. Whereas this one, actually everybody's like, everybody's great, and we're all moving forwards, and we're all really good, and it's fantastic. Dissipated control, the whole thing is just like, wow. Okay, yeah, is that possible? Oh yeah, I had classes that did that. What I found is that classes fluctuate between A and B, or B and C. Okay, generally if you've got C classes, and they're usually associated with lower sets. Okay, but there are stay on C classes, you kind of have to maintain quite a lot of control, but ever so often you go, can we have a B class? And it's not to do with their age, it doesn't really matter which set, although there are correspondences in some way. And it would be interesting to see what those are, and that's what the PhD was for. So generally stayed at C, and I've mapped this sometimes on class, on a wall. Okay, so the students would see where they are, A, B, C, over a period of time, in comparison to older students, and to top sets and bottom sets. Because this thing is not to do with the intelligence, okay? It's not to do with setting of students, and it's not even age related. Okay, this is for all social organizations. We're terrible at it. And adults, this is what we're doing. We're setting up people to operate like this. And then we're spending most of our lives in business trying to get people to be more self-organized and self-determining. Okay, so we kind of instill this, and then we try to release people from this, the institutional form of it. It's kind of challenging. Whereas if we introduce this into schools at early enough age, then by the time the kids are coming out 16, 17, 18 as adults, so they're going into these institutions as kids, and they're coming out as adults, they can actually work out how to organize themselves, how to, there's 30 new people, 50, 100, 200, and they know how to, okay, let's get into teams, let's organize, let's all listen to somebody, let's work out different ways that we can organize ourselves. Sometimes we have to make decisions democratically, sometimes we have to make decisions autocratically. We have to empower somebody and they make the decisions because there's been a critical failure, there's a critical disorder occurring, and we need somebody to make decisions quite effectively and we may need representatives, okay, and so on and so forth. And you get the whole range of basically experimentation of democracy or autocracy and so on and so forth. And this is every single lesson. And you think, really? Yes, 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 yes. And there'll be different teachers that use this in different ways. And so this is not just for the students, this is for the teachers. So, I did social anthropology. I was interested in this stuff. I was interested in, Buddhism and self-determination and self-authentic, release and awareness and blah, blah, blah. I was interested in these things. And I wanted A classes because they were fun. We were much more human. And so I did have classes that were predominantly A and then only flipped down to Bs. Okay? And the Cs would go, oh, can we do it? But, well, look, okay, try and have a class where I'm not actually, imposing order, I'm not correcting you. And maybe we'll be able to get to a B. And sometimes they just couldn't quite do it. And I said, look, okay, I'm going to treat you like a B class because you're almost there, but you're still not there. Okay, but there's enough people in the class that really think that they deserve to be in a B class. But there's still one or two that haven't quite got it. Okay? And they kind of constantly turn this class into a C class. And they're aware of it, the individual's aware of it, the rest of the class is aware of it. Okay, so let's just try it. Okay, I'm going to treat you like a B class next time. I'll have slightly different activities. It'll be less like boring work, more interesting work. That's like even more interesting. I will, I'll come up with a puzzle and a game. And when we're doing the puzzle and game, I'll be doing it in a nice way, not kind of making sure that people are playing the game correctly. I don't want to be a referee. I want to actually take part in the game. So, and I would do that. And then we'd do that, and we'd have a lesson, and then you say, was it good? And what I'm trying to get the C-state student is to realise, especially the ones that are actually causing the problem, to realise that it was better. And it is important to make sure that the adult actually is enjoying themselves too. Because they're a human being and they've got a lot of pressures on them. I mean, I know that they've got exams coming up. I know that. And so I have to make sure that they cover certain material. And so we can't just go wandering off somewhere and just having a fun time. We have to kind of go, get a certain syllabus done. But what I found, I mean, it's not hard, is that if you get B classes, you can get through a lot more work. But instead of thinking that we're going to go through the same amount of work, well, yes, you go through the same amount of work, but shorter periods of time. So I introduced accelerated learning techniques, which you can start doing in B, certainly A classes. And there's loads of these, okay? And I ended up doing things like 20 minutes solid work, okay? So 20 minutes solid work is where, when you say go, everybody's bang, down to it. And then everybody, at the end of it, comes out of it. It's artificial, I know, but it's like a race, okay? And you have to get down to it and go. And what I found for most students, quite a lot of classes, is that you say, right, let's all do this work, and everybody goes, oh, okay, and most people do it, and other people are like, doing that kind of thing. Not quite low level of disruption, but a bit of reluctance to work. Not a huge amount, but just, brain slow. And it's like, by the time they get into it, about 10 minutes, okay, they don't have enough time to complete the work, and so when you're saying, right, okay, let's go on to the next thing, they're like, oh, no, I'm just finishing this thing. You're like, oh, for God's sakes. And so it's about learning collectively to go, that's what we're sharpening up. It's not through nagging, it's through, do you see the social effect on the class? And so I'm really sharp with time. Everything that I do, and all the other process that I talk about, it's all to do with time. It's to do with us, numbers of people, and time. And with adults, money, okay? Or our version of money with Sqale. So it's to do with, we've got to do this together with other people because that's what it's about. It's like a football game. You can't just kind of, I'll get to it at some point or another. Oh, the ball's up at that end, so it doesn't really matter if I have to defend, The ball's up the other end, I'll just wait about. It doesn't matter what this other guy's doing. And sometimes like, do, the ball's over there. Oh, the guy's run, and there's a goal, okay? People have worked this out in sports. It's taken a while. It's only the last, 5 years that I've heard of people talking about different phases in sport. Phases. So basically, if we lose the ball up there, everybody's trying to defend. Everybody's defending at the same time. Everybody's attacking at the same time. But you kind of enter into these phases depending if your team's got the ball or not got the ball. That kind of thing. And so, so you're kind of aware of this. And that's what A state is. It's self-determined. So everybody's doing the learning at the same time. Everybody's lots of different kinds of learning is going on, you know, whether it's the individual, skills, awareness, some skill on the specific subject, a topic. You know, there's lots of learning, lots of different layers happening simultaneously in all of these classes. This kind of stratifies it and makes it a bit more dull. And because of the fact that it's controlled by the teacher, it just has a certain form, as you know. In fact, if you've been to schools, the chances are you went through these state classes. There might have been a few that you thought, wow, they were really good classes. Was that because the teacher was actually in control? And I call those C plus classes. And they are really good classes, okay? But it's because everybody knows they're in control, okay? That's a qualitatively different thing for an A or B class, especially an A class. So a C plus might, you know, a lot of top sets are behaving as if they're A. But people, basically, a lot of top sets, you just give them a lot of work. It's just like a C plus. Because the behavior is sorted, you just give them a lot of work. The problem is that you're not doing the creative stuff, the collaborative stuff, which even with the top sets, they all start going a bit bonkers, okay, without that control. So A states is about, you should be able to say to a bunch of A state students, okay, get into groups, let's do this activity, here you go. And you dish out some materials and you actually sit down with different groups. And you don't have to sit there and worry about, are they you know, seated, are they working on over there? No, I can't be bothered with that, okay? With an A class. B, I might have to, you know, so often go da-da-da and then go off to the class group that's not doing that well and go, hello, how's it going? And they're like, oh, they're starting to get on with it. Fine, okay? But an A class is fantastic. You just trust people. There's a very high trust environment. And if you get a bunch of adults coming out of school with a high trust engagement because their relationship to each other is strong, then and their capacity to engage a bunch of other new people and to organize themselves to achieve objectives quickly, collectively, then, well, it's ideal. It's all to do with relationships. This is less to do with relationships. This is to do with more control of this. Right. So that's me. That's my description of what ABC is. And next, I will maybe, okay, I am going to talk about it more formally, a bit more dull perhaps, and then maybe if I've got anything else to say at the end, I'll say it. Right.